Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Smile Sessions. I'm your host, Christina Perry, and I'm thrilled that you decided to join me today. So, what do I have in store for you? Well, it's time to wrap up that part of my life involving my mother and her romance scam. So, sit back, grab your tea or coffee, or popcorn for that matter, because we're going to rip off this band aid once and for all. Before I jump into today's episode, I feel inclined to share this story. Just before I was about to record this episode, I opened my email. I subscribed to a daily email from my guardian angel. This helped me throughout my healing journey. The episode I'm about to share with you ties in beautifully with this content. This is a divine message showing me that this episode is in alignment with my life path. The angel message was from Archangel Raphael, and it read, "Today I gently unclench your hands, fill your heart with love, and ask you to release the hurts of the past, the unkind words, the hurtful labels, abandonments. Release them to me, and I will take them from you. You no longer need to hold on to the pain of what has been. You are given a brand new chance each day to bring joy into your life. Embrace this opportunity to tell a renewed story about who you are and what has happened to you. Remember what you've overcome, but don't let the pain define you." I'm going to be honest with you, as I always am. A lot of the timelines and sequence of events are a blur. Because so many incidents were repetitive, it's like they kind of all mixed into one another. But I will tell you the main guts of what occurred from my perspective, as always. During the pandemic, my parents remained together. I had gone about 10 months without speaking to my mom when I finally conceded around Mother's Day in 2021. The few times that I did see them during the pandemic, they seemed content and things had settled down. Until one day a second phone was discovered in her closet. It was on vibrate, and I don't think she was home when either my brother or father discovered the phone. After discussing this with my siblings and father, we felt it was in my mother's best interest to have her formed. This meant having my mom taken to hospital by police for an involuntary psychiatric assessment. It was not an easy decision, but it was our only option at the time. We were looking out for her best interest. We knew she would be taken advantage of again, and she didn't want to believe it. We were hoping the doctors would see through her manipulation tactics, and then we could implement a power of attorney for finance to protect her from giving it away to strangers or scammers. Without a capacity assessment from the doctor, we were unable to move forward with legal aspects to protect her assets. So I kid you not when I say that the system failed us. The system failed us. Not even 24 hours later, my mother was discharged to the hospital and she was back home. I said to the hospital that she will become a part of the system, and their response was that there was nothing that we could do. The healthcare system can be particularly challenging in complex situations for several reasons. Healthcare systems often face resource constraints, including staffing shortages, limited hospital beds, and financial pressures. These limitations can hinder the ability to provide comprehensive care and follow up. Bureaucratic processes and rigid protocols can make it difficult to respond swiftly and effectively to unique or urgent cases, so the inflexibility can prevent timely interventions and appropriate care. Mental health issues are sometimes not even given the same priority as physical health problems. There can be a lack of understanding and stigma associated with mental health, leading to inadequate responses and support. In Ontario alone, healthcare was put on the back burner when they closed all the mental health hospitals and sent all those patients into long-term care, often sharing spaces with seniors who were fragile and had a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. But this is a topic for another day because I have a lot of opinions about this topic, having worked in long-term care for over 10 years. Effective healthcare often requires coordination between multiple providers and services. Poor communication and coordination can result in a fragmented care where important information is missed or not even acted upon. There are legal and ethical considerations that healthcare providers must navigate, especially when it comes to involuntary treatment and assessments. These constraints can limit the actions that healthcare professionals can take even when they recognize that a patient is at risk. Financial difficulties within the healthcare system can impact the quality and availability of care. Hospitals and clinics may struggle to maintain services and support due to budget cuts and rising costs. These factors combined can create significant barriers to providing the necessary care and support in complex situations, leading to frustration and feelings of being let down by the system. Not long after this stint, she started demanding that they sell the house. This was a feud that went on for 3 months. I remember being so emotionally drained and exhausted from all the back and forth. The last conversation I had with my mother was by text, and she was telling me to get my father to agree to sell the house. I told her I can't make him sell it if he didn't want to, in which she responded, "Then I'm done with you too." I said, "You're done with me?" She says, "Yes, I'm done with you too." I said, "Perfect." And I blocked her. In that moment, I was set free. I was given a free pass and I took it. I don't have to speak to her anymore. And she's the one who gave me the out. All because she was angry. And well, when you are no longer of use to a narcissist, you are discarded. I didn't care. I was guilt free and detaching from my mother. Too much has happened. She walked away from our family too many times for us to even think she remotely cared. A lot of time has passed for me to process everything that's happened. I can now reflect without being overcome with anger and emotion, as well as education, knowing that my mother has a mental illness. Her response to me in that moment was because she was hurt. And being one of the closest people to her, she chose to hurt me in turn. This is okay because I now understand it. I'm now looking at this whole story with compassion, which changes things. You will learn in upcoming episodes the steps I took to heal in my grief and how I mourned the loss of my mother. Once everything was said and done, my mother took her portions of the funds and went to live in a hotel until her flight to Dubai. Yes, you heard correctly. My mother had gotten rid of all of her furniture and personal belongings because she was relocating to Dubai to be with her boyfriend, who was supposedly 47. She was getting married and she was going to become a stepmom to his 16-year-old son. It sounds absurd, I know. So, if this isn't the universe trying to tell you something, her first attempt to Dubai was actually foiled because she didn't get a COVID test in order to fly. So she ended up rebooking a week later and off she went. My sister warned her that if she left for Dubai, she wasn't going to speak to her again. And my mother still left without a care in the world. It was like watching a 90-Day Fiancé in real time, only scammer version. I think it was about 2 weeks later when we heard that she was left at a hotel with $2,000 to come home. Her so-called fiance took everything. She blindly, out of love, deposited $400,000 into a joint account without securing it with double signature for withdrawals. So when she went to check her Bitcoin account and noticed that the password was changed, she had checked her bank account to discover it had been drained. Bet you didn't see that coming, right? It wasn't even shocking. The shocking part was that they actually left her with $2,000 to come home. She reported this to the authorities in Dubai and informed the Canadian consulate, but really, what could they do? Dubai is notorious for this kind of activity. We warned her time and time again, and she didn't want to listen. She was blinded by this idea of finding her Prince Charming. She ignored red flag after red flag. When she returned, she had to work with a social worker to find a place to live and a job so that she could get back on her feet. To be honest, that part didn't worry me at all. She's like a cat and always lands on her feet. I will give her that. The woman is resilient. I had washed my hands of anything that had to do with my mother. My son is aware that he has another grandmother, and he has asked about her. I just told him that she's not well and that we don't see her. When he's old enough, I will explain a little bit more as to what occurred. It's been 3 years since I spoke to my mother, and each year that passes has gotten easier. It takes a while to process trauma at the hands of a narcissist. Working through it with therapy helped, with coping mechanisms and strategies that I will share in future episodes. Speaking with a good friend of mine, she made me see things from a fresh perspective, and that's why I thrive on great conversations with kind-hearted people and where I can feel that their intentions are coming from a good place. My mother was, and still is to my knowledge, still looking for love, albeit in all the wrong places. It's really tough to see a loved one go through this. When someone is giving money in exchange for affection or validation, it can often indicate several underlying emotional needs or issues. Feeling isolated and trying to fill a void by seeking connections, even if they're not genuine. Believing that one isn't worthy of love without giving something in return can stem from a lack of self-worth. Past experiences of rejection or abandonment can lead to behaviors where one tries to buy love to avoid feeling unworthy or unloved. The need for human connection is deeply ingrained, and sometimes, out of desperation, one might resort to unhealthy ways to achieve it. A distorted view of what love should be, possibly equating love with financial transactions due to past relationships or experiences. I pray that one day my mother does come to the realization that seeking professional help to find healthier ways to fulfill her emotional needs. I did always say that if she did get the proper help that she needed, that I could possibly reconsider the situation. I've done a lot of reflection and healing work, and at this age, I find myself working through a lot of spiritual stuff. The whole basis of my faith is God's love and forgiveness. His own Son died on the cross for our sins. I've decided, for clarity, to seek answers in divine wisdom and guidance. In this episode, I shared the tumultuous journey with my mother during the pandemic, her involvement in a romance scam, and the difficult decisions that my family had to make in order to protect her. Despite our efforts, the system failed us, and my mother continued to make choices that led to her financial ruin. Ultimately, she moved to Dubai, only to be scammed and left with nothing. This experience taught me the importance of setting boundaries and seeking therapy to heal from my trauma, inflicted by a narcissistic parent. I want to leave you with this mantra: I release the past, for it holds no power over my being. I replace hurt of the past with new ways of seeing. Join me in future episodes as I discuss the steps I took to heal and move forward. Until next time, stay cyber safe and keep smiling.